streamer.
Thanks for stopping in, man. I'm gonna.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back, everyone. Tonight we present our first ever Role-Playing Unlimited out-of-character talk show. Over the next hour-ish, we will be discussing the events of this past week in our Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus campaign. Alongside me here, I have two of our Baldur's Gate adventurers. Evil Dawn playing the Aasimar Paladin Selephiel, and I also have James, who plays the half-orc fighter Grulak, the trash-talking half-orc, I should say. Although he's always very kind to call people gentlemen.
Yes, I mean he could be he could be professional if he needs to be. Let's be serious.
Yeah, especially having the world's worst paladin with you because of those dice
I
rolls.
I don't know if I get that, but I'm clearly the best looking in the by far.
No. I've got you beat on that one.
Okay.
I've got a mystical property that even in the middle of a tavern or in the middle of a room with no doors and no windows, my hair still blows in the breeze. So
Okay. Yes, that is a cool fact. I will give you that. I will give you that.
Well, I would say that it was our 7th session of Descent into Avernus over this past week. And I would say in this session, Grulak probably had his crowning moment thus far in the entire campaign. We will, of course, get to that in due time.
Okay.
We're going to pick up pretty much right where we left off. At the end of the previous session, our characters had purposefully entered the grounds of the Van Thamper Villa, and the guards immediately challenged them. We had some attempts at negotiation to resolve the issue of who's going to get Amric Van Thamper. Is he going to be turned over into custody? What's the deal? What's going to happen here? And all attempts at diplomacy failed for a variety of reasons. And
not my fault.
definitely not Selephiel's fault. He certainly tried his best. We got into a battle versus the guards. Some of them were killed, some of them were knocked out. We had a little controversy in facing them as well as in the aftermath. And I just want to get each of your thoughts on that battle, your experiences, your memories, your perspective.
Okay, so in my part, I could try to justify it since my character does have innate intelligence that I would have forgotten, but me as a player forgot to say, hey everybody, these guys are just guards and doing their duty, let's not kill them. Okay.
I didn't get that memo.
Nope, I didn't give that memo, so that's the problem that
Memo was
communication. Memo was not delivered.
So, so their actions dictated my response, if you will. So they kept me. Don't bring it if you don't want none, So I guess that was his mindset with it. But to be honest, like with the diplomacy side of the house, It's all they. I don't think they were very reasonable, to be honest. like uh, like there was a conversation go back and forth, and it just didn't seem like. I thought we were making very valid and clear points, but that clearly didn't come across.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Grulok seemed to embrace the "we are the Flaming Fist, we are the law"
Yes.
platform,
Yes.
whereas the guards here kept reiterating, yes, you realize that the city is separated into different sections and the city watch maintains control of the upper city. You're actually not even supposed to be up here.
Yeah, and that went right over the head. So, but I was gonna roll with it. I was gonna roll with it. I did roll with it, indeed.
We ended up capturing 4 of the guards and taking them alive, which brought back some memories from a previous campaign for me. Coincidentally, Don's character was taking charge on rendering these goblins unconscious in that past campaign, and he was also leading the charge on keeping these guards alive as best as we could. And we tied 4 of them to a tree, one of whom was stabbed through the gut by Hezra, and basically just kind of fell unconscious, and that poor guy was never given any healing.
Again, his actions dictated what happened. So
Well, and the other thing too, though, is we do have
Yep.
limited healing. I mean,
Yes.
I'm a paladin. We do have a cleric with us, but
do we though?
yeah, I know our cleric is more like a fighter than anything.
Yeah, that's what I consider. So I'm like,
Hey, in Calidor's defense, I think he's brought Celephiel back up from death save mode 3 times now.
Oh, well, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
but he
yes.
waits until I'm like dead before I get backpacked.
It's very,
It's
very
like a
ocular of
necessity.
him.
Exactly.
Dan, can I address something real quick?
By all means.
Your profile picture on Twitch with the bat face is by far way more epic than I could have thought. Like, is it? I didn't even know he did a face. I just look at it. I keep looking over. I keep looking over. So I gotta look at the. I look at the camera.
Oh yeah, good times. I knew I was going to put a picture of myself in that section, and ironically, that is the first picture of myself I came across, and I was like, that's going to be it. I'm Batman.
That was a good one. That was a good selection.
Oh yeah, good times. Glad you noticed that. Glad it put a smile on your face there. Hopefully it does the same for others. It's almost a decade-old picture, and it cracks me up every time.
I gotta find it. I have one like similar to that, but it was a llama. I can't remember. I think we were up in New York, and then there's a llama cutout, and I did a really stupid, goofy face. It was like a farmer guy with the llama, and I was sitting there going like it was just a horrible face. But every time I see it, it cracks me up. It's very similar to that.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. So after we took these guards captive, or rather we tied them to the tree because we couldn't afford to bring them along with us. We've already got Amric Van Thamper and one NPC solely dedicated just to keeping him in check. We're not about to try and tug 4 guards along with us. So we tie them to the tree, we enter the estate, which in itself had a little difficulty because there was a old senile butler who refused to allow you entry, even though he recognized you have the son of the Duke in your possession. He still like, no, you're not welcome here. You've got to get out.
That dude was a prick.
Did he
Sorry.
really know? Because, I mean, did he really see what's going on?
Oh, he definitely saw that you have Van Thamper in your possession, but I'm just following the dictation of the module. As strange as it may seem, that is the direction I believe the butler would have pursued despite the circumstances.
Wow.
Just like opening a door and it closing. Like how that played out was.
Yeah, I did not expect that the butler would be able to shut the door on you guys, but nevertheless he did, locked it up, retreated into the gallery where he made his primary objective, protecting the maid of the estate, and your characters located the key on Amric's person and just entered the house as easily as you could have anyway. And upon entering the first foyer, we had an ambush combat with 4 imps who really laid into the party almost from the get-go. We had Hezra and Selephiel both dropped in the first round. That's a third of our entire party rendered unconscious in like the first 12 seconds of battle.
Well, I mean, they're invisible. They get advantage. They have poison. I mean, and we're what, level 3? It's just, you know, it just was not a really good time for anybody.
Well, it's definitely unexpected, like how stout, I guess it was, you know. So I was like very surprised. I was like, ooh, okay.
I'm also very surprised as why do paladins not get good con saves?
Well, I think normally they do.
We have wisdom
right?
and charisma as our saving throws. It's like, but we're fighter type people.
Yeah, I guess you can only give them so much.
You know. And who uses a charisma save anyway? Serious, there's no single attack that's a charisma save.
Very few and far between indeed.
Yeah.
You'll be glad you have it when it actually does come up, though, because everybody else in the party will be screwed. And you'll be like, aha! Proficiency in charisma save. And then you'll roll a natural 1, and your +9 won't matter anyway.
I don't know. I'm putting in a petition to make paladins a little more powerful.
That's kind of
make them great again.
That's a worthy tangent right there. Just in your constant complaints about the paladin, I think also combined with your rather poor rolls over going on 2 months now. So I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Okay, so 1, yeah, the dice hate me. They hate me almost as much as they hate Will Wheaton, because I watched like almost every episode of Tabletop, and his dice just completely obliterate him. But on a completely different note, I have 3 divine abilities, 3 divine channel abilities that I can use once before a long rest.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of them is I could get a spell slot back. You know, the other one is a turn undead type thing, but for fiends and things like that, because I have the Watcher oath. And the third one is myself and up to my wisdom modifier in companions can get advantage on charisma, intelligence, and wisdom saves for like 1 minute. But I can use any of those 3 abilities, but I can only use 1. And now we have a ranger who has an ability to pop, force damage and turn all of her damage into force damage as a bonus action at will.
Yeah, it's strange that Rangers get such a bad rap in 5e. So many people complained about Rangers and needs for conversion, but in both examples I've seen of characters that have taken that path where they have access to Planar Warrior, they are very heinous characters.
Right. And then also, great, my smite is a bonus action. It has to be. I mean, if it wasn't, you would never be able to see a smite, in the entire game.
Yeah. But
most of my abilities that I need, like my lay on hands and things to keep me in the fight, are actions. So therefore, it's like, bam, I'm in the middle of combat, and I can't heal myself, or else I just open myself up to more attack without taking an attack.
Yep. Very true, very true.
I think they should make lay on hands a bonus action. And I think I should get 1 divinity usage for each of the 3 abilities that I have.
From your lips to Crawford's ears.
Oh yeah. We need to make the paladin worth playing. I mean, until I get to level 5, yeah, when I get level 5 and I get that fine steed, hey, Sean never utilized fine steed.
Fine or fly?
Find steed.
Find Steed. Oh.
It's like
Yeah,
it's like
find-
the coolest spell for a paladin.
Yeah, if you want to find your steed, you don't get that until level 6.
Find them like some gold. And I'm
You
on
know.
fire.
But just the abilities, where it's like, okay, call Paladin Warhorse, and then if your Warhorse dies, you're out of luck and out of campaign for a while you try to find a new Warhorse. This spell eliminates all of that. Boom, your Celestial Steed appears. It stays until you let it go. And then if you're going into the dungeon, you just let it go and then recast the spell when you come out of the dungeon, and boom, you got your steed back.
I dig it. Yeah, I'm interested to see that in play. We certainly haven't had any character that's taken advantage of that.
Not yet.
Yes.
So despite the difficulty of the imp combat that we had, nevertheless your group was victorious in defeating them, sending all 4 of them screaming back into the 9 hells. Did a little further exploration. We found some servants' quarters. We found a gallery, which prompted one of the more memorable moments for me in this past week's session, wherein we found the very lifelike statue of the Duke Thalamra Vanthamper, holding a very lifelike version of a Tressym, a flying cat in Forgotten Realms jargon. And the cat was so real, and it had a wax rat inside of its mouth that Jim's character, Zhang Hoon, he just fixated on for at least the next segment or two of the adventure that night. Which I'm not saying one way or the other if he's onto anything. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but I thought that was very interesting that he's like, well, why does the rat come out of the statue if there's no purpose for it?
I mean, it is a fair point because I mean, depending on what you're doing, you see that you're like, that's sketchy. That's different. So
I mean, it's. Oh, go
he
ahead.
was very observant. No, sorry, no. He was more observant with it. So I don't know if I would have gone into the reads like how he approached it, but it was definitely intriguing to see how that all went.
And I think it's a smarter move than he's played his character the entire game so far.
True. Very true.
Maybe his character has a rat affinity that we are not aware of.
That is a possibility.
So he's naturally more savvy to all things rat related.
Could be because I mean, the fixation is the right word. I think that's the most appropriate.
I found it interesting that our next moves after this, as we continue to explore the villa and we encountered the butler for the second time, in addition to the maid, and later on the cook, our response with them was very accusatory that you are in league with the Vanthampers, you know all about the devils and the plan to drag Baldur's Gate into hell. We're not going to kill you or slay you here. Justice will find you. We will find you later on. And all 3 of those NPCs were released with very minimal fuss. And in rewatching the events of this past Tuesday, I thought it was very funny that right after the maid and the butler left, it was Dawn that was like, wait a minute, what if that was the Duke under some kind of polymorph effect and we just let her go? Oh no!
I mean, it was a great point that when you brought it up, I was like, oh man, that would have been brilliant on their part to use that to, like, essentially a ruse to get past the group. So I was just like, ooh, man, I really.
Well, we saw that tactic used earlier in the dungeon too, where it's like we had this old lady that was with us, and all of a sudden sneak attack, stab, and then changed form.
Yep.
And if that didn't happen earlier, I don't think my character would have even thought that.
Gone into that realm, if you will.
Because I'm trying to play him as close to what his knowledges should be and how much magic he should know, based on being a paladin. But it was just one of those things where it's like, we've seen this happen before. It's like, what if we just let go of the main bad guys I don't think they would have gone so easy though. Because nobles probably would have been contemptuous of us anyways, and probably would have fought us first, using that as an element of surprise.
Oh, for sure. Entirely possible.
Yep.
It was in this moment that...
Tressum.
Oh, we got the Tressum making a second appearance here on Role Playing Unlimited, aka Slobber Chops.
So
Yeah,
fluffy.
this one's named Corsair.
Oh, that's a great.
Hello, Corsair.
Love that name.
They say hello
Welcome
to Corsair.
to RPU. So it's at this point, after we're letting the staff go, that I think it was Ben's character, Calidor, who heard the guards who you had left tied to the tree earlier now screaming.
Oh.
They're now regaining consciousness. They're shouting, "We've got murderers, assassins, intruders, help, City Watch, anybody out there, please help." And we sent Grulok out there to deal with the situation, which is the aforementioned crowning moment, I think, of his role in the campaign thus far, where he went out to intimidate the guards, and I will leave it to you to tell our viewers exactly what it is you said.
So, in so many words, went out and threatened to maim them. I think it was cut out their tongues, eat their tongue, cut them and then cut them out and then eat them in the process. And that was sufficient enough to get them to shut their effing mouth. And I forget what the roll was, but it was high enough where I was like, yeah, this has got to be successful.
Well, the threat was if they ever spoke, if they said another word, you were going to eat their tongues.
Yeah, that's right. And they were like, yeah. And I guess seeing what I had done before during that fight, I think they were like, okay, he actually might follow through with it if he's so inclined.
Although I was really surprised that after we let, and this is a thought that I haven't had until like now, is after we let the servants go, it's like, why didn't the servants untie the guards?
Yeah, I thought the same exact thing. Like, because they're walking past, just... like, you're on your own.
Yeah, they just left on there. Oh, that's true too. And
yes. Yep. Around a corner, just like, I'm sorry. You say something?
Well, and if you look also what we did, and the kind of a little bit of the psychological thing we did without even realizing it, we tied them to a tree, but we put all the dead bodies near the wall in sighting distance of that tree.
Yes.
So there's a pile of dead bodies there, and them tied to that tree, just watching their dead companions just rot.
Oh yeah, I mean that's why the guards. That's why the guards started shouting for help, and our inside joke became, as Grulok intimidated them, that they were not only going to shut up for that moment, but they would never say a word to anybody ever again. There's this constant fear that they'll have that this orc will just be watching over them like the specter of death.
Right, just you run around a corner. There's always a chance that we run around a corner and we see each other again, and that'll be an interesting interaction if that were to happen.
And let's not mention the fact that also my paladin has very few hit points for being a paladin. Even though I rolled pretty decent on each of the levels, it's I just seem to walk right into trouble.
Yeah, the first few games it was definitely nadir. I mean, you don't want your sorcerer getting in the midst of melee, and I believe sessions 1 through 3, every combat that happened, there was always some kind of flanking potential, or you're facing creatures that were flying, and nadir was just such a tempting target, and for whatever reason, Justin found himself getting attacked a lot more than he would have liked.
Right.
He was a focus for sure.
And it was a pretty well balanced session, I felt, given that we had the combat with the guards, we had a combat with the imps, we had a second combat with more imps, which prompted Nadir to just speak. Man, how many imps do they have at their disposal? How many devils are they in?
And me
league with
dropping
here?
again.
Oh, absolutely. Celestial dropped twice, 3 times during the session. Hezra likewise
Yep.
dropped twice. Grulok's hit points were challenged. But we also had a
Yep.
fair amount of encounters as well, because we did try to do some negotiation with the guards, negotiation with the butler, the interrogation of the butler and the maid and the cook, and the ensuing letting them go. And thanks to the presence of Hezra and her Speak with Animals spell, we also had a verbal encounter with the Tressum Slobberchops, which was not entirely expected through the course of the session, but it ended up being an invaluable source of information, as Slobberchops informed your group.
This voice right here,
Yeah, thank you. I was
Uh,
going to ask you to do. I was about to ask you to do.
that they got all kinds of devils and imps inside this house, and that the Duke is downstairs with her friend and the brother. The brothers who live upstairs, and there are more guards. They got the guards that live up the stairs too, and
Yeah, this
Very
Tressum
articulate.
this Tressum made fast friends with Calidor, who fed some choice scraps of meat and vegetables to Slobberchops, and very fast friends with Hezra as well, as Slobberchops realized,
oh, I can actually talk to somebody here. That's pretty cool.
Although, I love cats in real life, but I'm just looking at this cat as a potential familiar for the bad guys, and it's like, great, we're just bringing in, we've invited in a spy to be able to check us out and tell them everything that's going on.
that's entirely possible. The Tressum does have the useful ability of being able to detect invisible creatures, so we'll see exactly how that plays out with any further imp encounters. It didn't play out so well in the first encounter we had after meeting Slobberchops, as we descended into the cellar and were promptly ambushed, I use the term loosely, by 3 spined devils. Their entire ambush was to break out of some cases in the center of the room. And then we rolled initiative, and they went dead last. So I think they got 1 turn, and a very inept turn at that. They might have hit one of you. The tide was definitely starting to turn by this point in the evening.
Right. 'Cause I think these guys essentially swarmed, and that's. But they really didn't have a chance, especially with where they were at. They were kind of screwed, to be honest. Oh. They're going down. I do like that keeps coming up. Right. Either. Oh. Hard times. Hard times. Hard times. Oh, it's so funny. I'm sorry, that was really funny. Mhm. Oh yeah, it was pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Oh yeah, and it was after that Spine Devil combat where your characters started turning the tide and destroying your competition that we came towards the end of the evening, and you made your way out into the sewer tunnels, smelled the incense that was disguising the putrid scent of nastiness, and you also saw two cultists wearing devil masks at one end of the corridor. And that ended up being our quickest combat yet, as I think we got 3 initiative ticks in, and your characters rushed up there. 3 of you got to attack the cultists. The cultists didn't do anything at all, and they were promptly slayed.
Well, and
Down and dirty.
finally, I actually had some decent die rolls.
Yeah.
Very true,
Yeah.
very true. Yeah, Salephiel finally got in a solid hit there, and in addition to the Spine Devil combat, I think you got a couple good hits in there.
But remember, by level 5, baby, I get a second attack, and level 4, I could actually bring my strength up. So, I'll actually have like some decent stuff going on, but I gotta wait for that level 5.
Good
Yeah,
things
level
come to
5
those
is
who-
big stuff.
Yep.
Until then, hard times. Hard times.
Yes, indeed, Jason Haynes. If you are watching the hard times and the it's all in love, and it's just cool that we can reminisce about this stuff 20 years down the line after the fact.
I do. I'm sure we all have like a lot of similar circumstances and stories over that time frame. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, those Nero days hold a lot of fondness in all of our hearts, I'm sure. Just as the tabletop RPU stuff.
For sure.
Yep.
Before we conclude the segment here recapping this most recent week's session, I just wanted to get from each of you your general perspective and opinions of the module thus far. We're 7 sessions in. You've had a chance to explore many different locales in Baldur's Gate, meet many of its citizens. You're kind of getting a sense of where the adventure is leading. So, yeah, what's your impressions?
I like it. I think since we started, I think that everyone's kind of melded together, if that makes sense. Like the group, as a group, everybody's been able to move forward, and take care of things. I think like very effectively. The communication has actually been pretty good, which sometimes with groups that are brand new, that is a very difficult thing.
Oh man, or even the last group.
With a super diverse makeup, if you will, I thought, okay, this is going to be really bad. This is going to go south, and because some people are very good type personalities, and so maybe not so much. So it's interesting to see when a group can come together for a central goal or have a focus, and it actually is moving forward to that focus. If that makes sense. Try not to rant.
Oh, absolutely.
And
it's a testament to what happens when a party is not made up entirely of neutral aligned characters. That's the issue we had with the previous campaign, is everybody was so dang neutral we couldn't make any decisions about anything.
Yes.
All I know is my gut says maybe.
No,
Right.
last campaign, I mean, I was evil. So, I mean, they didn't really want to follow me.
Oh, absolutely. And then we had the whole vampire fiasco where a third of the party was turned into vampires. So not only did we have communication schisms and leadership voids, but we had actual physical schisms within the group, as certain people were, well, I'm not going to be aligned with a vampire. No, thank you.
Right. Well, sometimes you get, and not so much in this, like where there's like somebody who's actually like literally trying to sabotage the whole group, or the whole, really the group, just trying to backstab the group, playing these games, and whether it's a personality issue or whatever, that it does it causes a lot of frustration.
Oh, for sure.
And but luckily, not so much in this case, but it can be real bad when those type
I
of
don't know
things
if you've noticed, but the paladin and the monk don't see eye to eye on anything. And there was one point where it's like, the monk
Yeah,
went into
very
a
true.
room by himself where I was off in the distance, and it was like, I don't hear anything, while he's being attacked, just because of the fact that, the paladin doesn't want to see a companion die. But
Right.
if any of the companions should die, it should be the monk.
Oh man.
Just-
Hey,
But
well that's
it's one
kind of
thing.
rude.
Well, it's
You
one thing
know.
to not see, if you don't see eye to eye, that's one thing. But like when there's literal like, I'm gonna screw this person. I want this them to fail in this. That's where the problem is. But eye to eye, it's frustrating, but you can work through it. Does that make
I
sense?
don't
I
think
Oh,
think
for
you have
sure.
that.
I don't think the monk would actually cry crocodile tears if the paladin fell. Okay,
Probably not.
so I mean, it's just
Probably not.
but
Probably.
out of character, I mean, I have the most, I have a lot of respect for Jim and the characters that he comes up with. He comes up with some really unique items and unique
Sure does.
ideas. You
Well,
know,
the difference between the two characters is at least at some point the paladin has the capability of bringing a dead party member back from the dead. So I guess that would be
A plus,
the
yeah.
main issue in that instance if Celefiel
well,
refuses to bring Jiang Hun back and the rest of the party's
he
like,
would.
well, why? Why would that be a problem?
He would do it anyways, just because it would be, the just and correct thing to do, even though his inside he's like, "Ah, I really don't want to do this, but duty dictates that I do this.
Yeah, for
And that's
sure.
the same thing with my healing too.
That
Is
duty
like if
thing.
he's close to death, it's like I'm still gonna heal him and not like the fact that I'm healing him, but hey, it's all part of duty.
Well, let's round about over to your perspective of the Baldur's Gate campaign thus far. We got off on a little bit of a party unity tangent right there, but overall, seems like James is impressed with the campaign. He likes the depth of it so far, the different options that
Yep.
we're seeing. How about you, Don?
I like the campaign too. I like the aspect of outside of the specific dungeons, it's an open world type thing. So, I mean, yes, we had to be guided towards a dungeon or two because we as players didn't explore a lot of the other opportunities that could possibly be there. We
Right,
went to this
right.
one tavern, but what if we went to this store, or what if we went to this location instead, and maybe we would have gotten a different side quest,
It's a good point.
or different directions to go with
Yeah.
this, and it could have led into skipping parts of it altogether, or I don't even know if we've actually skipped anything so far by accident. So
Yeah, that's one thing I always give Forgotten Realms credit for. As far back as second edition, when I first came across Forgotten Realms, is just the immense detail they always put into everything. Whether it's a source book, a book of new monsters that are Faerun specific, especially their modules. Man, I just remember always being such a fan of running the pre-written mods back in high school because of the amount of detail that they put into them. I mean, 90% of the stuff that is written in those books, most groups will never come across unless the GM intentionally railroads them towards each of these events. A lot of it, especially in the 5e now, when I read these modules, I'm like, man, they're basically making a video game into a tabletop RPG. It's very much intended with the purpose of your party should wander around and discover as much as you can. Meet people, talk to people. When you walk into an area and the GM says you see these NPCs around, each of those NPCs has at least a little something about them that, depending on where you bite, the GM then has that much more incentive to kind of lead you down a different tangent.
Right, a freedom of choice, because if you're forced in that direction, it's tough. Like I don't forced in a certain way. I hate to say the word railroad, but I guess that's the most appropriate.
Oh,
There's
for
one
sure.
track you can go. You can't go this direction because it's been, you're mandated to go that way. It's kind of like, okay.
Right.
And even in the Forgotten Realms, I mean, they have characters specifically there that lie.
Right.
You know, not everyone is there to help you. You know, but not everybody is there to
Oh,
attack
absolutely.
you.
Like you were pointing out, I mean, we rescued a sweet old lady from a dungeon, and she ended up being a shapeshifter who tried to stab somebody in the back.
Yep.
Backstab. Didn't work out so well, did it?
Well, maybe you'll run into her again when our campaign
Awesome.
takes us to the 9 Hells later on.
Stand by. Stand by.
Was that a spoiler? Should you have done spoilers on that one? Even though we know, you know, the title of the game.
That's what I was going to
kinda
say, based on the
Yeah.
title of the campaign. Unless Avernus is like a street in Baldur's Gate. it's
Or maybe it's
one of the planes of hell, but it's also a street on the west side of Baldur's Gate. So we're not really descending into hell. We're just kind of moving over to this section of the city.
Yes, down
Or
there.
maybe it's a bottled water company that's there in Baldur's Gate. Drink some Avernus.
Ah, delicious. Crystal Avernus.
Delicious.
So I want to take this this time right now just to thank both of you for joining in on the recap here, and we're going to conclude our first RPU OOC here with a brief intro into the world of Enemir. And here I'm just going to go through a little narrative of my journey
Sure.
that kind of led down the conception of Enemir. And this is going back a ways. After my initial hook into role-playing games, through games like Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, and D&D, I spent my middle and high school years crafting different maps and playing several mini-campaigns. It's here that I discovered my passion for creating and game mastering. And by junior year of high school, I had my first campaign setting crafted, enough for my first serious campaign. Named Homeland, my first setting was a simple island divided into a small handful of countries. Homeland was a monumental success for me in its day, so much so that I ran its entire story a second time in my early 20s after I met many of the players who have since formed the backbone of Roleplaying Unlimited. I soon began to realize that Homeland's reach was very small. It was a huge achievement for my high school GM self, but as I aged, I began to see more and more flaws with my creation. And in 2001, I made the decision to start anew with a different campaign setting, one much larger and more expansive, a world that would offer unlimited adventuring potential. And from these concepts, the world of Enemir was created and campaign ready by the summer of 2002. Recognizing that I had a lot of ideas for what Enemir would look like, but at the same time realizing that I was gaming with a very talented group of players, I pooled our creative resources to give us each a sense of satisfaction in creating this campaign setting. While the vast majority of the world creation and Historia is my own design, the Roleplaying Unlimited roster exceeded expectations by delivering dozens of names that would later go on to be prominent towns, cities, or NPCs within the Enemir narrative. Sean handcrafted unique races and monsters for the setting, many of which have become staples in the backdrop of many of our adventures, and a few of which have even formed memorable encounters. Justin crafted almost the entirety of Enemir's original pantheon, and each deity gave our world a further unique flavor and texture. I drew all of the original maps for Enemir, but I later commissioned Mike to combine the 6 country maps of the continent of Alaram into a table-sized rollout map, the results of which continue to amaze our current and new players every time it features in a campaign. Where Homeland was limiting, Enemir is limitless. Where Homeland's humans were of only 3 different cultures, Enemir's humankind encompasses no less than a dozen different variants, each with their own heritage, and that's only what we've discovered so far. Similarly, so too do Enemir's elves, dwarves, halflings, and gnomes have variety in their races. Of course, this is where D&D has naturally headed for years now. It's not like I invented anything new here, but it was nonetheless an exhilarating experience to see a campaign setting in a much larger perspective than I was capable of than back in the Homeland days. Cultures and societies with distinctive feels, Eucor as the classic Arthurian kingdom, Towel originated as a wild land of wild horse-riding barbarians with a Mongolian flair to their culture. Izar as the enlightened realm of monks and scions, and also the expansive dwarven realm of the Rathagan. Bados, the center of art and sophistication. Interius, the stereotypical land of strife, always picking fights with other realms, and always defeating themselves through their own short-sightedness. And Danamar, as both the home of Elvendom, as well as the realm of technomancy, highly inspired by the Final Fantasy series of games. And just in case even those 6 countries with all their plethora of contents wasn't enough, I crafted 2 additional lands of exploration. The island chain of Melima, home to a people whose very blood is part of Enemir's magical foundation, and Xianux, a continent even larger than Alaram. Covered in large swaths of desert, Xianux's countries are connected by use of sand ships, and many countries here are a sort of bizarro world where entire cities and countries are overseen by devils, orcs, Savuli, which is Enemir slang for dark elves, drow, and in some cases even lesser deities. In 20 years of adventure on Enemir, we've barely tapped the surface of most mapped areas, especially on Xianux. Most of our adventures on Enemir have taken place on the continent of Alaram, where I've chronicled the adventures of 6 different groups of heroes throughout 7 campaigns. We've faced recurring villains through different campaigns and battled in wars against invading armies. In one campaign alone, we faced off against armies of dragons, banished deities, and an unstable magical weave at the same time. We've seen the entire fabric of Enemir altered and later restored through the classic Back to the Future time travel trope. Or was that Endgame? One group of companions became involved with a secret society of alien beings intent on controlling major events on Enemir, gaining power and prosperity our other groups could only dream of. And in 2017, I rehashed the old Homeland story, fixing all the old mistakes and fleshing out the plot in ways I was finally satisfied with. This campaign became known as Pinnacle, and served as a glimpse into the elder days of Enemir before recorded history. In this way, I repurposed the old Homeland plots into the Enemir Historia as a sort of origin story. I thought that was pretty cool. Most recently, we moved to the opposite end of the chronologies, exploring a more modern age, an industrial age and gold boom. In addition to the classic dungeon crawling and mystery unraveling, our characters stood opposed to local political powers, intent on resolving environmental issues. In brief, I hope you've gained a bit of perspective into just how massive Enemir is. In the coming weeks, here on RPU OOC, we look forward to revealing what I refer to as the Enemir Historia, contained within our 1400 years of Enemir's most major events to date. And while we dig through those, we'll have some of the players who helped craft these stories talk about their experiences, their memories. Through it all, we'll share more and more about the world of Enemir, building up to our upcoming Enemir campaign, Danamari Reclamation. I'd like to thank both of you again for being here tonight as co-hosts of this rollout for RPU OOC. It has been fun reminiscing over this week's activities. I look forward to continuing this on the weekly and eventually working more Enemir stuff into it, because that's ultimately what this is all about. RPU is Enemir. Thank you all very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our friends. Thank you to our supporters. Hope you all have a great evening. Take care.
Bye. Oh, at least you got the